This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Joe Stump. To those of you in guitar and metal circles, Joe should need no introduction. The Shredlord has rained down full throttle, neoclassic shred, speed metal since his debut. Guitar Dominance was released over 27 years ago. Joe has been named to Guitar One magazine as one of the top 10 fastest shredders of all time, by Guitar World as one of the 50th fastest players of all time, and by Guitarist magazines as one of the top 20 shredders of all time. He has appeared in countless guitar and metal-based publications, fanzines, and webzines worldwide. The American shred guitar legend has toured the world both as a solo artist and with metal bands. Joe Stump's Tower of Babel, Joe Stump's Reign of Terror, and HolyHell. Joe is also a guitarist in the legendary hard rock band Alcatrazz. The band relaunched and released its first record since 1986. The album Born Innocent went #1 in Japan and #4 in the UK metal hard rock album charts. Alcatrazz toured extensively in 2019 in Europe, UK, Japan, and Australia. A little after a year later, Alcatrazz added the legendary vocalist Doogie White from Rainbow, Yngwie Malmsteen, Michael Schenker, and released Five, the follow-up to Born Innocent. Joe is also an associate professor at the esteemed Berklee College of Music, where he has been the metal shred guitar specialist for the last 28 years. His new solo record, Diabolical Ferocity, was released by Finnish Label Lion Music on September 17, 2021. Since then, he continues to do his solo work and is currently looking forward to his tour with Alcatrazz. It's a pleasure to have you on, Joe.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yes, I have to say that it has really been so exciting for me to prepare for this interview, because I just saw you a couple of months ago. You were down at the cutting room with Rob Belducci.
New York City.
Yes.
With Rob. Yeah, that was a nice show. It was fun.
Yeah, I really loved it because the fans there weren't for one or the other. The fans, they were for both of you. And that's what I really enjoyed. Sitting around a lot of tables, there was a lot of guitarists in the audience, and a few of them jumped up and they were like wearing T-shirts for one of your bands and, talking about things. You can overhear people, and they're really a true fan base. So I was really excited to see you play live finally. I have been following you. My very good friend is Rob Caggiano, and you were his tutor at Berklee School of Music in the very early 90s. So he has often referenced you, yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Rob's really had a great career, and it's great to see him continue to do well. And he was a killer player even when he first started studying with me. It's not like, oh yes, he owes it all to me. He was fairly devastating. When I first met him and stuff, and studied with me a few semesters. We always got along great, being both New York guys and everything. And he's a great player, and it's nice to see him having done so well.
I was very interested in your work at Berklee, and I had seen some interviews that you had done where other people had asked you about Berklee. And there was one or two things that you said that really struck me, because for a very long time in the military, I was an instructor. And your description was the students come to you, and a majority of it really weighs on them, how much they really want to be putting into this. And I always felt the same about teaching and having soldiers go through the programs that we taught, because it really does rely on them. And it's just not something that someone can absorb. They really have to work hard at it, no matter what it is. And especially guitar. I mean, that's just practice, practice, practice.
There's no shortcut, and there is no substitute for good old-fashioned elbow grease, as they say.
That is right. And just for the audience's sake, I didn't realize that the school actually has more than one location. They have the New York City location, they have Boston location, and they have a location in Valencia, Spain. I didn't realize that. And they also on their website are offering online classes. I was wondering if that came about because of COVID. Is that correct?
No, Berklee Online, like during the pandemic, all of Berklee went online, which I'm glad that's over. But I was still maintaining my regular schedule there, just doing everything remotely with all the students. And and it was wacky because you'd have some students where they were all the way over in Asia, and they're having their classes, and it's like 3:00 in the morning. You know what I mean? For them, I mean, I was just working a regular schedule, so for me it was no big deal. But no, Berklee Online is a completely separate entity. Of course, not removed from the college because many of the same faculty members work for Berklee Online. I work for Berklee Online, but just on private instruction. So I'm at the college on Wednesday, Thursdays, Fridays, and then I have the private lessons on Mondays and Tuesdays via Berklee Online. Usually, on my off days, I'm home playing guitar anyway, so recording, hanging, practicing, composing, so why not get paid for it too?
Yes. I was interested in looking at the website and realizing how many people did graduate from there. So Steve Vai looks like he's a graduate of 1979. Paula Cole, who I'm also a fan of, 1990. She played with Peter Gabriel. And another one that actually caught my interest was Quincy Jones. In the 1950s, he's been associated with it. So do you have any stories about any of the students that kind of roll through there, other than Rob, that you can say that you really had contact with?
Oh yeah, like I've had, and Steve never graduated, and neither did I. That's one of the things that they'll say about Berklee. Well, anybody that's super successful really never graduated there. So I'm a dropout. I don't have a degree or a diploma or anything. But now I'm an associate professor, so I'm glad I'm done doing homework anyway. But school is out for me. But no, I've had many successful metal players study with me. I was Gus G's mentor, from Firewind, and he did a stint with Ozzy. But he didn't really go to school there very long. He was there for like a summer program, and then he stopped going to Berklee and just used to come over to my apartment at the time, like twice a week for lessons. I worked with him quite a bit. And I think Joel from Killswitch Engage, Joel was one of my dudes for a bit. And also Dave Davidson from Revocation, killer player. And Dave, when he was there, he primarily studied jazz. And, Dave took a couple of my metal master classes, but he studied with me even before, when he was younger in like some summer programs, and he was still like just about to enter college, because he primarily studied jazz the whole time, and he was at school, minus a few metal master classes with me. He's a killer player. I've had tons and tons of players that, come through that went on to do cool things. And it's nice because when I tour, I'll run into a bunch of my old students. I was playing in Europe, I think it was 2023, and one of my students came to see me play, and he drove from Austria over to Germany to see me. And then in the States, I would one of my other old students would be at like the Denver show or the Pittsburgh show or the LA show or the San Francisco show. So it's nice. Those are students that studied with me for like multiple semesters, and many of them still keep in contact with me, so it's nice.
Yeah, well, it's a very extensive list of guitar specialists there. I had no idea how many people are on their website. It's quite literally like pages of people, but like you said, some of the specialists do focus in on, like you said, jazz and other blends of guitar.
Oh, just about every style you can imagine. Jazz, country, blues, classic rock, various types of jazz, whether it's older school stuff, more modern stuff, fusion, fingerstyle, classical, of course. One of the faculty members there, David Newsom, who's awesome. He not only does he teach classical, but, he has like a flamenco class there. So it's extremely diverse. I'm not sure how many guitar students are there now, but it's been like as many as like 1,000 to 1,200 at a time. Now, due to like American Idol and The Voice and all that kind of stuff, the vocal department has kind of taken over. For many, many decades, the guitar department was the lifeblood of the college. But now, due to all those shows, now it's predominantly female singers.
That is really amazing. Well, it's a very prestigious school, and I think it's an amazing honor to have you share your experience with us, because a lot of the listeners, have never experienced a school at that level. But also, it's just amazing that someone of your caliber is there, somebody that has toured, because I'm sure some of the students that roll through, they want to know what it's like to really tour. I mean, I'm sure it's different cutting an album versus actually living the life. To do shredding the way you've been doing it for, a couple of decades here or more, it's really living the life, because that kind of guitar playing has got to be quite difficult.
Yes, lucky for me, I like to play all the time and I love to practice all the time. And I really have no choice. I'm the high-tech metal specialist there. So you really got to be the real deal, or else that's like a personal trainer, like sitting there eating brownies while they're telling you to do a couple more sit-ups or something, So, and my brownie days are long past me, since I was little. But anyway, what I was going to say is, no, it's great. There's not too many jobs where I can go in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, make my own schedule, work till 9 o'clock at night, and then take off and go on the road for a few weeks, come back. So for me, it's great. And I've been there quite a while, since 93, so coming up on year, 32. And, I still enjoy it and everything. Anything that involves guitar, I'm all in. I enjoy it. Doesn't matter whether it's touring, making records, playing live shows, doing clinics, doing master classes, giving lessons. As long as the thing's in my hands, I'm happy. As I always say, it beats working.
Yes. Well, I would like to know what was the first time that you actually picked up a guitar, because I've been friends with Rob since probably 1993. And one of the first things we talked about was, when was the first time you played? And he was 5 years old. His dad put him up on the stage, and he had a small guitar, and he played on stage. And he often reflects on that, saying, like, when he got up there, he wasn't nervous. He was 5 years old, but he was playing, and he enjoyed the feedback from the audience. And being such a young age, very often Rob will say, like, he feels he was born this way, like there's no other job for him. It was kind of like he was born with a guitar in his hands in some sort of a way. Was that similar to your experience?
No, when I was a kid, when I was little, I used to watch all those shows. Like I used to watch like the Johnny Cash show and Glenn Campbell, and I used to love Tom Jones when I was little. Because I thought he was so cool with the rings and the mic, and I remember I wanted to play. So I played a little when I was 10, learning out of like Mel Bay's Easy Way, and learning some older dude, just like stuff out of the book. And I was like, nah, this stinks. I don't want to do it anymore. And then I stopped, and then I picked it back up when I was like 13, 14. And then I was hooked, and I knew, right in my teenage years, I'd never do anything else. So it's been nonstop ever since. I was very lucky. When I was a kid growing up in New York, the drinking age was 18. I was in my first bar at like 15, playing in my first bar at like 15 and a half. And that's when the Long Island club scene was like really like flourishing, where I would go out and see I used to go out and see Twisted Sister, and like when they were playing Lou Reed and David Bowie covers, and go see the Good Rats and all these iconic Long Island bands and stuff. And the clubs would be open like 7 days a week, so I would go out on like Wednesday, Thursday nights or whatever, but then I'd play on Fridays and Saturdays and stuff. So I was very lucky where I played quite a bit all throughout high school. I've had a straight job.
That's great. So you grew up in New York City, but you moved out to Long Island. Is that correct?
I was born in Queens, and then lived there a little, and then moved out to the mean streets of Smithtown, where the only thing we were really afraid of were our mothers, our Italian-American mothers in their house coats, Yeah, like I was watching the Billy Joel special, and he was talking about everybody always associates him with New York City, but he grew up in Hicksville and stuff. It was like that, but it was cool. I was only like 45 minutes from the city, and I went into the city quite a bit. I was in a metal band in '89, and we were signed to a New York label, and we used to go in there all the time, and our lawyer at the time was located there and everything. So, I've been all over the world, and New York City, no place like it.
Absolutely. What was the first opportunity about getting signed with a band in the 80s? What was that band? How did that come about? I
was in this band, Trash Broadway, and we were signed to Torrid Records. And Torrid Records was an independent label from New York, and their claim to fame is they put out Bonded by Blood by Exodus. And then they had a New Jersey thrash band that was kind of progressive called Hades. And then they had this kind of punky band called Mucky Pup, I remember. But we were like their more like mainstream metal kind of thing. I mean, I wrote like some of the tunes, so everything I liked was always more like European sounding. because I loved Michael Schenker and Blackmore and Gary Moore and Yngwie Malmsteen and Rainbow and Purple and stuff. And then, but the band had that kind of, 80s kind of look. I used to go to the Village, that's when the East Village was in full swing. This woman had this store, her name was CC Starr, and she had like this rock superstore like in the East Village where she used to make clothes. You'd go in her store and you'd see pictures of her with everybody. Name a metal band at the time. She made a bunch of those short military jackets that Yngwie wore during the Trilogy period and Marching Out period. She made a couple for me. I think I still have a couple up in the archive closet somewhere. But it was awesome. She would have all these belts and scarves and huge dangly. That's the day of the dangly earring and stuff. It was really quite fun. But Trash Broadway was signed to Torrid Records, and it was hysterical because back then you would take your little press kit and your cassette and you would mail it to all these record companies, and then somebody would get back to you and say, "Hey, we want to sign you." And then we had a record deal, played a bunch of shows. Band kind of did its thing and ran its course from like 89 to 91. I won 92. And then I got my first solo deal with Leviathan Records, which is David T. Chastain. He was a well-known metal guitarist. He had like all different kinds of projects. And David was originally on Mike Varney's Shrapnel label. And he defected and started his own label because he was tired of the record company not treating him properly. So I worked with him for like a long time. I want to say 11 or 12 years. And I'm still in contact with him and everything. I've been very fortunate that a bunch of the people that I've been involved in the music business have been very good to me and like kind of showed me the biz a bit and really helped me. So I'm very grateful. And he's certainly, one of the first ones that come to mind.
That is very interesting because being in a band with other members is one thing, but then to be able to move into almost having your own band, that's kind of a different story. That's actually kind of better for you in some way, right?
Well, I always wanted to do an I was always into that fast guitar nonsense, and the instrumental shredding and everything. And I like doing both. I like doing instrumental music, and I like to do metal records with vocalists as well. So throughout my career, I've done both. I continue to make solo records, and then I continue to write vocal material as well. Between, I have, of course, Alcatrazz, and I write, a good portion of the music for Alcatrazz. Wrote a bunch of stuff on Born Innocent, wrote quite a few things, a good portion of the record on Five, and, quite a bit of the record on Take No Prisoners. And then I have my own band, Joe Stump's Tower of Babel, so, we're on a second record now that's more of a Rainbow Deep Purple thing. And I write all of the music. I don't like the lyrics and the melody lines, but I usually leave that up to the singer, but, all the musical content is mine.
Yes. So it's interesting as I follow your bio, you've had a combination of solo work, solo bands, and also being part of a band. And I went back and I was really blown away with HolyHell. It seemed to be, there's so much on YouTube on HolyHell. Your female singer, she really kicks it. I mean, it's amazing, all of the covers. I watched her do Dio. I mean, there's quite a long list of covers, but you guys really are tight, and it just sounded amazing. So can you tell me about that? How did that all come about?
HolyHell, the way that came about, as far as my involvement was many years ago, ex-Virgin's guitarist Jack Stahl, he lives in Florida now, but Jack, I believe he's originally from Huntington. Huntington, Long Island, another Long Island guitar dude. So Jack was doing a solo record for Magic Circle Music, which was Joey DeMaio from Manowar, was Joey's label. And Joey had the label and he had a management company. So I was friendly with Jack. I was always a fan of his because I read about him in the early 80s, and I loved his record Out of the Darkness. And I think, in the days where you used to write letters to dudes, I wrote him a fan letter, in fact. And somehow that led to us being in touch and them contacted me, because Jack's an old school player. They needed somebody to play a bunch of the rhythm guitars on his record with a bit more precision. And so they called me, they said, "Hey, are you interested in doing this?" And I said, "Sure." So I went to upstate New York, as we call it. It's really western New York, outside of Syracuse. So I went to the Manowar studios and played all the rhythm guitars and then some solo stuff on Jack's record with them. And then Joey mentioned to me, he's like, "Hey, because everybody got along with me very well, and they all thought I played quite good and all that nonsense." So he said, hey, I'm forming this project around this female vocalist. Are you interested in being involved? And I was like, sure, why not? So that evolved into the HolyHell thing, and it was all like outstanding players. Maria Bouillon is the singer. How would I describe her? She's like a lethal metal combination of like a female Dio and like a metal Pat Benatar would be a good way to describe her. You know what I mean? Beautiful voice. And then the drummer was Rhino, the X-Man Award drummer Rhino. And then Jay Rigney was the bass player, outstanding bass player. Played with me on a bunch of my solo stuff and In the Reign of Terror. And then Francisco Palomo was the keyboard player, who was just like amazing, amazing keyboard player, amazing at orchestrations, and, all top-notch virtuoso players. And then we were signed to the Manowar label and management company, and we used to go out and tour with Manowar all the time. Because I guess originally the idea was that they wanted to groom us to, really be a cash cow for the label. And it was headed in that direction, and things were going quite well. And then there was a falling out, without going into the gory details, there was a falling out between the band and Magic Circle. I wasn't involved in any of it. Then there were lawsuits and, legal stuff and all that. And the dust has finally settled on that in recent years. So there's a chance that HolyHell was going to ramp back up. Because it was, we were really doing quite well and really getting a good response. We were fairly well known in, like Hasselhoff. We were huge in Germany, because Manowar was quite big in Germany. We used to tour with them there all the time. And in other European countries as well. But the band really had quite a bit of appeal because it kind of crossed into, you had like fans of like European power metal that would like it. And of course, with the female singer, you get like the Epica and the Nightwish action. But we were like meaner and heavier. And of course, since I was playing more guitar oriented too. But then there was this gothic element to the band. So there was almost people that liked Evanescence and Moonstruck and things of that nature also liked the band too. Because we had this like gothic kind of angels and demons and all that kind of stuff. So it was really quite cool. I'm grateful for my time in the band. Grateful to Joey and everything. It's a shame the thing fell apart, but we might ramp things back up, so we'll see what happens. I just hope it all comes together before my fingers get too arthritic,
Well, let me tell you, thank gosh for YouTube, because when I came across that, there's more than 10 songs that are on there. I mean, I went back, I listened to the Dio cover that you did. Most of the songs that were on what I saw were all covers. Did you do any original work?
Oh, yeah, we did all original. What happened with the dispute with the label, all the stuff got pulled. First, we did an EP in 2006, then we did a full-length record in 2009, then another EP and another full-length record, but the full-length record got shelved. So there's 2 EPs and a full-length record. It all got taken down due to the legal dispute. So maybe the only stuff laying around on YouTube are like odd covers here or there, or like, some bootleg live performances of the band and all that. Any of the really good stuff all got taken down, or any of the bands, I believe the only thing that's available on the streaming platforms is the last EP, Darkness Visible, which is just like a 4-song thing. And, the band was completely disgusted. I remember that when we heard the mix of it, we were like, we were unhappy. And that's when, that was the beginning of the end. So, I remember the last show, it must have been like, I want to say 2010. So it was quite a while ago. So we'll see what happens. There's a good possibility, All I need is, I got Alcatrazz, my solo thing, and Joe Stump's Tower of Babel, and plus a couple other things I play regionally with the Northeast. So all I need is yet another band. So,
Yes, well, it sounds like you're very busy, Joe. I'm glad you mentioned Alcatrazz, because I recently interviewed Jimmy Waldo and Gary Shea. I really enjoyed talking to them. They were a lot of fun. But what I really enjoy, and I have to tell you this, is coming across some videos that you have done called Joe's Deli. I think that is hilarious. I love it. I love the little catchy thing. You said that one of the guys, was it Jimmy, said, Joe's Deli, fill your belly.
Yes, like our old label, Silver Lining, Joe's Deli thing started out when we were in the UK. We were stopping at a supermarket, so I thought, because I don't eat until after the show. I hate to eat before I play or whatever. When I'm on tour, some people eat like a lot when they're on tour. I eat like a bird when I'm on tour and stuff. So, I don't eat a lot. So I got a bunch of cold cuts and stuff. And then I was in the lobby, like drinking a beer and like making myself a sandwich. Jimmy rooms with me on the road, so I'm constantly feeding Jimmy and constantly, making stuff for him. Like he comes over to my house, I cook for him and everything. I don't even eat breakfast. I make him breakfast and I can cook really good, so I make all kinds of stuff for him for dinner. He loves it. It's like a resort here. But anyway, so I make Jimmy a sandwich. Then they started to film it, and then it kind of spiraled from there. And then the label got involved, and they started there was a Joe's Deli theme song and a little trailer. And then it became like a thing where they were like, tell Joe he's got to shoot more delis, you know what I mean? And Jimmy kind of became my co-host on it. Basically what it comes down to is we're on the road, we're eating like whatever's laying around, you know what I mean? There was the Scotch egg episode, there's all kinds of different episodes involving various things. And also it's cool, like all the different snacks and chips and crap you can get, because a lot of times I'm just eating a sandwich and like, some kind of form of chip or snack or something, and surviving on that for like, a month out on tour.
Well, I really enjoy it because I've watched a few of them. And it's funny because the presentation of it, like at one point, Jimmy holds up a beer and he says, this is an actual real IPA. It's not brewed in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I let out a big laugh because I have a lot of friends in Poughkeepsie, New York, and, the whole IPA thing and where it's brewed and whatever. And then, I watched the Scotch egg. And at one point, it wasn't just the Scotch egg, but you actually start to present Jimmy with another cellophane mystery item. And he's like backing up and, it's like a square. And you're like talking about it like, well, it's really like a ham and there's an egg in the middle. And so the first thing, just for the audience sake, but the first thing Jimmy says is, I'm not going to try it. I want to like look at it first and I want to smell it. Because you talk about traveling with these items. So you must like be stuffing them in your bags, right?
I think one time it was wintertime in the UK, so I would open up the window of the hotel and like put stuff out on the windowsill to keep it cold and stuff. And I have like I like to drink IPA, that's my thing. Do I drink a lot on tour? No, but I always drink like 1 or 1.5 IPAs before every show. It's in the Alcatrazz rider, so that's like one of my things. I'm very self-sufficient where I don't need anything but coffee and, and my craft beer items. So, but yeah, like I remember that. I forget what exactly it was. It was some kind of like cold cut thing, but it was almost like in a roll with like a hard-boiled egg in the middle. And, and it was like one of those things where it was actually pretty good, but it looked kind of dodgy. But, Jimmy, like I fix all kinds of stuff,
Yes, well, I really enjoyed it. I really did, because it really shows your personalities and everything. It's interesting because I have to say that I'm not an expert on guitar, but you have something on YouTube that I have to say I've watched at least 5 or 6 times, and I'm mesmerized by it. It's just you. You have your guitar, and it's called Joe Stump, Demon's Eye. And you're just playing. And literally the comments, I mean, if you're ever having a bad day, just go to that and read the comments because they are so complimentary. And these guys that are writing these comments are talking about the particular guitar that you're holding, which I know nothing about. They're calling it a scalloped whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, a scalloped guitar. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah. To me personally, Demon's Eye is old. And, I play much better than that now. That's like, if I compare it to something I've done more recently, was it good at the time? That was a track that was on Supersonic Shred Machine, which was from 1996. So for me, it's like now, like I'll watch older videos of myself and then I just pick it apart and like single out all the things. Oh, that could have been better. Oh, that's not too good either. Oh, that stinks. I'm like super self-critical. I would suggest like more of my more recent things where I'm up quite a few notches then. But, one would hope it was like decades ago. But it was okay for the time, I guess. But I have like, way more videos where I'm significantly better. But that's one of the nice things is like I've made some of the best records of my career in recent years. Like my last 3 solo records, The Dark Lord Rises, Symphonic Onslaught and Diabolical Ferocity, the last bunch of Alcatrazz records, the last 2 Tower of Babel records, Lake of Fire and the new one, Days of Thunder. And of course, like Prior Convictions, the new Alcatrazz record of the re-records coming out, comes out in conjunction with the tour in November. But that's very nice of you to say, but, to me, I kind of cringe, like I don't want to watch any of my older videos. Plus, the other thing, I was a bit heavier then, too. I'm in much better shape now, too. So that's another aspect of it I like, I wouldn't say that was quite my fat Elvis stage, you know what I mean? That was a bit before that, but, I'm in much better shape now that I'm a bit older.
You're funny. I was only focused on your guitar playing and those amazing comments. So you bring up a really good point. I don't know your recent work like that. So if the audience members are studying guitar or are studying to shred like you, what would be the videos or what would be the songs that they should really focus in on? Because when you say Demon's Eye, that was from 1996, at the time, that may have been a go-to for someone who's studying to shred.
Yeah, that was a strong track, like, back then. I mean, like, some more recent videos. There's some live videos of me playing, some more recent live videos of me. I mean, from my last solo record, Sneak Attack, there's a really good play-along for Sneak Attack. That's really good. There's a few play-alongs from the Joe Stump's Tower of Babel stuff. There's also tons of live stuff where I'm doing some significant damage. Or even like, let's say if I had to say somebody wants to watch me do damage in a video, I'd say Sneak Attack, and one of my more popular ones is Neoclassical Shredfest number 4. And that's like more recent, even though it's a few years old, it might be from 2016 or something like that. Or Out for Blood's another famous track of mine, or famous to guitar players have done covers of it. Or there's one Joe Stump live in the studio where I'm playing the Bullet Train Express with like a green screen behind me. But, if they look, there's some stronger stuff. Demon's Eye was done for like a Berklee DVD like many years ago. But, it's cool.
Yes. It's interesting because interviewing a lot of musicians on this show, I realized that many of them studied guitar, with a DVD player or a VCR player, where they would play it, stop it, go back, play it. Some of the guys actually, like one guy in particular, he grew up in Germany. So he didn't have proper classes. So he would go back and fast forward and rewind and do that to Kiss. And he claims that that was like his first lessons, is watching guitar playing with Kiss. And, I find it interesting because the DVDs and the VCRs of the past is really what we have now, which is our YouTube. And I think our YouTube is even better because now the YouTube is almost, instructional, whereas some guys can actually say, this is how you really do this, So it's in some way, outside of going to a proper school, it's probably very easy for people to kind of pick up guitar. Would you agree?
Yes, well, it's kind of like it's almost like a double-edged sword to a certain extent because there's so much information available to younger players when they're trying to develop. And there's so many different sources, it's hard to say, which sources are the most legitimate. Because, that's the other thing. It's like, now everybody's an expert. So you have that aspect to it. Plus, the other thing is it's almost like too easy to a certain... I mean, it's nice for younger players and developing players to have the resources. But, that kind of self-discovery on the instrument yourself, they're kind of missing out on that, When I didn't learn to play in school or from lessons, or even though I went to Berklee, I played a lot of classical stuff, so that was cool when I was there. But, I mean, I decided in, 1981, 82, I wasn't going to play anything else but metal and hard rock. And, I did it all myself. No one helped me, no one showed me anything. And then I had some instructional VHS cassettes and stuff, but I was just consumed with all of my heroes, Gary Moore and Richie Blackmore and Yngwie Malmsteen, Michael Schenker, Uli John Roth, and just taking the records, cassettes, and CDs and just wearing them out and learning all their tunes, their riffs, and their solos and everything. And that's how I did it the old school way,
We're looking at the calendar, and when I was talking with Jimmy and Gary, they were talking about this upcoming tour, which is exciting. You do a lot of writing for them. So what is the experience like writing for that band? I mean, they're so iconic,
Well, one of the reasons that they thought I was such a good fit was they obviously wanted somebody that, like that when, we were playing with Graham and then later with Doogie, both played with Yngwie and Blackmore, so they wanted somebody that played like Yngwie and Blackmore, which if somebody had to describe what do I sound like, I sound like a more aggressive, meaner, darker, more evil metal combination of both of those. Of course, I'm not putting myself in the category with two legends like that, but that would be an accurate description of what I do. And they also wanted somebody that was more metal, you know what I mean? Because they wanted Alcatrazz not to just appeal to fans of Rainbow, fans of Michael Schenker, fans of Yngwie, fans of Deep Purple, but also if someone was a fan of Accept or Saxon or Iron Maiden, then Alcatrazz would appeal to them as well. So I definitely brought like a much heavier element to the band. And so that the material I write is like a combination. Some of it's still in the older school Alcatrazz neoclassical vein. Some of it borders on European power metal. Some of it's just straight up old school hard rock. Some of it's heavily Rainbow and Purple influenced. I'm always writing things and composing things. And then I could just kind of give them the option. It's like, hey, I have like probably at least 15 things together that, we could start to mess with up for the next record. And usually Jimmy will have something and then he'll come over and then he might have like one or two parts and then I'll kind of turn it into a tune right there. Right. And sometimes I do it just right on the spot. I'm like, okay, that needs this. All right, let's see what happens. I just kind of do it off the top of my head organically. But that's the way I write anything. I just sit here in my workroom where I spend many hours just playing and practicing, and all of a sudden, I'm doing some shred nonsense, and then all of a sudden something comes to me. It's like a riff, or it's a melody, or it's a cool classical bit, or whatever, and then next thing you know, it's a tune. I mentioned previously I love the New York Yankees, so I watch the games religiously. So I sit there and play in front of the TV, watching the Yanks, and then, I'll write a lot of tunes during the Yankee games, too. Because I'm just kind of subconsciously, stuff just kind of seeps in. It's like, oh, that's really good. Okay, I'll go in my workroom and make sure I document that. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. That's very interesting. My next question is, I'm curious, do you have any vivid dreams or do you get any song influences while you're dreaming at night? Or is this mostly all in your walking, living life?
No, I never have any song input. I have very vivid dreams. I think I had like a series of 3 last night and this morning. The last thing I remembered was I was sitting there and I think my mother was there. I was sitting there and I kept going into the refrigerator and opening the beer. And then I realized I had to catch a flight at 9 o'clock and it was 25 after 8 and I had to go to the airport. I remember that. That might have been one of those, you wake up and then go back to sleep in the morning kind of things. But what was I going to say? No, everything just comes to me as I'm playing. I'm not like one of those, I just sit here with my guitar and play and then things just organically come to me. I don't say, oh, I'm going to write a tune. Like all of a sudden I'll be playing and then I hear something in my head and it comes about organically. I just let the music take me where it wants to, and I let it happen very organically. And sometimes I'll have something laying around and I write the next part for it like a week later. Sometimes I write stuff all in one shot. Sometimes I'll have something laying around and then I write a second part to it like a month later. So I'm always just doing it like any old school metal moron. I just sit here with my guitar and then things come to me.
You're funny.
Do I have all the knowledge since I'm an associate professor about classical harmony and all kinds of scales and chords and stuff? Yes, but it's kind of hardwired into me at this point where, it's just part of my musical DNA.
Yes, I could see that. This upcoming tour is very interesting because you're going to be paired with Girl School, who was kind of touring with Alcatrazz going back to 1984, and also being paired up with my good friend David Reese with Bangalore Choir. So that should be interesting, catching up with both of those bands and being all together on those tour dates. So what are you looking forward to most?
Well, we've toured quite a bit with the Girl School ladies, like a ton. And, and they're awesome, they're hysterical. They're kind of a cross between Motorhead and Absolutely Fabulous. They're very, very funny. And in fact, on their last record, WTF 45, I wrote the first single, I wrote it with Kim, Are You Ready? I wrote the music and then played lead guitar on it. And then she wrote the lyrics and the melody lines. And I've gotten up and played that with them and stuff. And they were out on tour with Saxon. I went over to Europe. And I played like the last 4 shows with them playing that tune. So it's always a lot of fun. We have a lot of laughs and, they're awesome. and David Reese. David, I don't know it all, but Giles, Giles and the other guy, Jimmy, all know him quite well, and they've done some work together. So that'll be nice. It'll be a nice bill, and that's always fun. And I enjoy touring. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy touring. I like staying in hotels, you know what I mean? Some people don't like any of that stuff. I like to fly, you know what I mean? I like all those things.
So on this upcoming tour schedule, is there a particular location that you're looking forward to? Because you've probably been to a lot of these locations over the last 30 years.
Well, Sweden, I played a festival there summer of 2024. Right after we played Wacken, we played a festival in Sweden. But, there's going to be a few shows in Sweden, and a close friend of mine lives there. He used to be a famous Swedish race car driver. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's come on tour with us before where, like, everybody else is riding in the van, and I'm driving with him in his BMW, driving, 120 miles an hour down the Autobahn in Germany. So, he's still got it. He's an older gentleman now, but, he's still a demon behind the wheel. And I haven't been to Finland in a while, since 2019, so that'll be cool. And I always like playing in Germany, because as I like to say, metal's quite popular in Europe, and Germany is the metal capital of Europe. I like playing everywhere, but Germany's quite a lot of fun. And plus Germany, Germany's awesome when it comes to modern convenience, or modern convenience of some things, They still don't have screens on the windows or proper air conditioning, But, you can get stuff late at night. It's easy to find something to eat. It's easy to go, you want to go get a beer somewhere or go to a pub late at night, So Germany's open quite late. So I enjoy that about playing there as well.
Yes. And one last question, because I recently was talking about this with Rob Balducci, and I know you guys had done the show recently. Are you planning on going to NAMM this coming January?
Maybe I will. I haven't gone in a while. So I have an endorsement with ESP Guitars. But ESP, they've got some, massive metal players that'll do signings and stuff like that. But still, I can get in touch with the gang at ESP and they'll get me a badge and, I can go there and hang and see some things. I mean, I love being from New York. I love California, And when Alcatrazz, we used to rehearse there all the time. So I love going out there. I would fly out there and rehearse for a bunch of days and go to the Rainbow Bar and grill every night. So, I kind of miss when we used to rehearse out in L.A. when, a bunch of the band was located there and I was the only one on the East Coast. But now we have, all European players. So the rehearsals for this tour, I believe, are going to be in Gothenburg, Sweden, a few days before the tour. Which would be nice,
Very cool. So just this morning, I posted an Instagram story of you promoting Alcatrazz, and I tagged you in it, and I'll continue to do that going up towards your tour start dates and in preparation for this interview. So can you just tell everyone your social media or how they can contact you and, stream your music and everything?
The new Alcatrazz record is Fire Convictions, and then the new Joe Stump's Tower of Babel record, Days of Thunder, which if you love Rainbow and you love Deep Purple and you love early Michael Schenker, you're going to love that record. It's awesome. And that's on all the streaming platforms. And then my Instagram is Joe Stump Official. My .com site, not that anybody goes to the .com site, but it's got that's JoeShredlordStump.com, and same thing with the Facebook, Joe Shredlord Stump on Facebook, as well as the Alcatrazz sites and the Joe Stump's Tower of Babel sites as well. But my stuff's on all the streaming platforms and available on CD as well. And my last solo record, Diabolical Ferocity, but I just finished a new solo record that'll be out next year, and I have a new label, Lion Music from Finland did my last bunch of records, which is nice. Lassie from Lion Music, I'm going to see him when I go to Finland. And now I have a solo deal with Silver Lining Music, which is nice. So, so very fortunate. Alcatrazz with Brave Words Records, and me and my solo thing, and Joe Stump's Tower of Babel with Silver Lining. So I can't complain. Business is good.
This has been a wonderful experience interviewing Joe, and I really appreciate your work, and I'm a big fan. So thank you again for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. You have been listening to Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium, Dream Central Station, LLC. My audio editor is Al Hemberger at the Loft Recording Studios in Bronxville, New York. This is WNEW 102.7 FM radio.